What's poppin', everyone? Low Hill Plays here. We are back to go over more Pokemon that came with the Teal Mask DLC, to go through some of their movesets and also their competitive usages. So yeah, this is kind of part 2. Part 1 I went over all the brand new Pokemon. So if you haven't checked out that video, make sure they do, and of course make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to check out for more of these parts, as I am hopefully going to be getting through all these in hopefully 2 episodes. But yeah, just interesting to check out all these mons. I'm looking at them in terms of competitive use, obviously on Pokemon Showdown, as well as the Draft League format, which I am personally a co-owner of a PBO, Pokemon Battle Organization, which is Pokemon Showdown draft style formats that me and my friends are doing. So if you are interested in that, we are currently going through playoffs at the moment. Into championship, so it's very exciting. So if you would like to check that out, make sure they do on the channel. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So Teal Mask dropped a whole bunch of different Pokemon coming into the formats. We're gonna go through them most part by generation. I did skip a few at the end because there are some transfer only Pokemon at the very end, so we'll go through those too. So Arbok is back. Arbok was never really good. Of course, everything is just immediately plopped into OU because they don't know how it's going to act. Has decent abilities, Intimidate, Shed Skin. Decent options in terms of Coil, like maybe run Coil Rest, and it's good for Shed Skin. But it also has access to Knockoff, Toxic Spikes, Toxic. Some pretty good moves there. I know it also gets access to some Fangs. Unnerve is okay for berries. I was also thinking maybe a cool set would be like Coil Dragon Tail. Has access to Haze as well, Psychic Fangs, Glare, and it has a whole bunch of options in terms of Fangs, like Fire Fang, Ice Fang, stuff like that. But ultimately, I see this being more like a Coil set. I don't think you ever really go too aggressive. I mean, unless this thing is like in PU, NU, and is able to put in work that way, but most likely it's going to end up being Coil sets. In terms of draft format, it's probably hard to bring, but it can be pretty decent for some matchups, I'd assume. But yeah, it has pretty good coverage, to be honest, like Earthquake, a whole bunch of options. It's just that the stats are so weak that most of the time it's probably going to get laughed at. But yeah, Coil Rest Shed Skin is kind of cool, but probably only viable in really low tiers and not much viability in terms of draft format. So moving forward, we have Sandslash, which now has, I mean, it had this before, but Sandrush, obviously its better ability than Sandville, has access to Stealth Rocks, does now have Knockoff. I believe that it had it before, but I know Knockoff is coming back to a lot of Pokemon, so don't quote me on that. Rapid Spin, obviously, it's basically like a weaker Donphan. Sandslash is just like a weaker Donphan, and the fact that, you know, it just has worse stats in terms of what it wants to do, but obviously it gets Stealth Rock, Knockoff, Rapid Spin, very similar to Donphan in terms of like its performance. So obviously it doesn't get Ice Spinner, which is like its main downfall, but it also seconds as a Spike Setter, also has Sword Dance, good utility for Super Fang stuff, so it can beat a defensive wall, just Super Fang stuff, and also gets Stone Edge. Most of its other moves are pretty interesting. I know it also got Gunk Shot now to hit poison types, but that's pretty much it for Sandslash. Again, this is just a very weaker Donphan, so in terms of draft format, it's probably viable in the sense that, you know, it's a weaker Donphan. You could go for the cheaper option for Donphan, as well as in terms of Pokemon Showdown format. Probably, I think Donphan is UU right now, so this thing's probably going in RU or NU, depending how necessary Rapid Spin is for the format. So yeah, that is Sandslash. Moving on, we got Sandslash Alolan. So of course, with all these Pokemon coming in, all their regional variants are actually in the game now. So Sandslash Alolan is here, pretty good with Slush Rush. There's a lot of really, like, not toxic, but there's a lot of crazy Snow Warning stuff. We'll get to that when we get to Ninetales going on right now in the OU format. But now that Hail increases your defense, Hail is actually super viable, and a lot of ice types in Hail are very viable, especially with this thing already having a really sky-high defense. In Hail, it gives you, you know, obviously, especially if you have Slowking, Galarian, or whatever Chilly Reception mons, you can actually Chilly Reception into this, and it already has really sky-high defense, and then you give it a +1 defense boost in the Hail. You're basically guaranteeing yourself a guaranteed Swords Dance against a physical attacker. Maybe as long as it's not a fire type move, but and then you obviously you have Slush Rush and a really high attack stat. But Sand Slash Alolan does get access to Earthquake, Ice Shard, Ice Spinner. These are basically the moves that Sand Slash, like, I mean, Sand Slash obviously got Earthquake, but these ice moves obviously Sand Slash doesn't get. I also thought Icicle Spear was kind of interesting because you could technically run loaded dice and then you have a stronger ice type move if that's really something that you need. But of course, Sand Slash Alola, it's very dependent on the fact that Sand Slash has Hail Up, because outside of Hail, it's very weak for sure. But of course, it does have access to Swords Dance, Knockoff, Rapid Spin itself, so it is itself a Rapid Spinner. I think in lower formats, it probably could do well as a Rapid Spinner, but most likely you're going to want to use it as like a Snow Sweeper. I definitely see this thing with potentially a Bomb Snow being pretty decent in terms of lower formats, but yeah. Also, of course, gets Iron Head, some other things. It does get Spikes, and it does get Stealth Rocks, similar to Sand Slash in that way. And then more utility of Super Fang, and then just coverage as Rock Slide. These are just some options that I was looking at. So yeah, that's Sand Slash Alolan. Moving forward, Big Clefable is back. Magic Guard or Unaware, both really good abilities. Moonlight, Moonblast, Calm Mind, and Baton Pass. I mean, these are all, like, when I'm going through these moves, I'm not saying that these are exactly sets, but these are just options that they can run, and then you can combine any variations of this to make actual sets. But yeah, Moonlight as a good way of recovery, Moonblast, Calm Mind, and Baton Pass. I believe it also gets Wish, so it could be a really nice Wish Baton Pass mon, especially in draft. Especially since, like, you know, it's always crazy that Clefable's stats aren't anything crazy, but it's so viable, just because the abilities are so good, as well as just like pure fairy typing is really strong. But looking at other moves that can run in terms of coverage, Flamethrower, Knockoff, Encore is pretty decent because it's got okay speed. You could potentially Encore other walls or things that want to go for Stealth Rocks, but Clefable also gets Stealth Rocks, so really Clefable's getting a lot of usage. It probably will stick around in OU more than likely. Just because, like, Stealth Rock, like, Clefable is just, like, naturally ends up being sent to OU, but if anything, definitely UU. Other options, Ice Beam, Thunder Wave, as I talked before, Wish Baton Pass, and it does have access to Thunderbolt. More niche things, Trick, Healing Wish, Grass Knot, and of course, Stored Power. Calm Mind is also pretty powerful. You probably run, like, Calm Mind, Stored Power, Flamethrower, and maybe Moonlight. But of course, you are a little bit more reliant on... The meta game is a lot faster now, especially since you have reduced PP for your healing moves. So it probably takes a lot more, but it can also be more likely that someone can PP stall you. So yeah, Big Clefable is back. In terms of draft, it's probably not it's definitely viable for sure. I just don't think it's like the craziest thing ever, but also like it has really good coverage and it has really good options. Especially being an Unaware mon is really powerful for draft too. So next we have Ninetales. You know, introducing another Drought Setter is obviously very good for the game. I don't think it's better than Torkoal, like, at all. Of course, Ninetales is a lot faster. But you know, Heavy Duty Boots is introduced in the game, so potentially you could bring Ninetales for that. Specifically, that it's not that weak to rocks anymore. So maybe you just have a lead just with Heavy Duty Boots. Set up the Drought and then, you know, switch out, and then you can always set up Drought later. I think Torkoal's always better because Torkoal has more options in terms of Stealth Rock, Rapid Spin, stuff like that. But, you know, Ninetales is very fast, and it's basically like a cheaper option in terms of Drought. Yeah, I think it's just a little bit worse than Torkoal in terms of draft, and especially in Showdown, I think it's worse too. But some options that it can run: Encore, Healing Wish, Nasty Plot, Will-O-Wisp, of course not in one set. But these are just some ideas. Maybe you are fast, so you can Encore some stuff. If you're Ninetales, whenever you're done setting up the sun, you just want to Healing Wish out into someone for free. Or if you do want a Nasty Plot using Ninetales and then you utilize the Drought ability, it's decently fast. So after a Nasty Plot, you're probably doing decent damage. Of course, you are fast enough to drop some Willows on things as well. Flamethrower, Memento, Solar Beam, and Hypnosis are some other coverage options I obviously was looking at. Hypnosis, bad accuracy, but you know, still can put in some work, especially if you would end up, you know, using Healing Wish or something anyway. Can be beneficial in that way. Of course, there's some like other like niche things that it gets, like coverage options like Shadow Ball and etc. But honestly, this Pokemon is specifically here just to set up the Sun for most teams to utilize Sun. So that is a little Ninetales, but I did skip right into Poliwrath, but I think something that's important is that we need to talk about Alolan Ninetales, which, yeah, it's right here. It's very similar to Ninetales and the way that it works, but obviously Snow Warning with the Ice Boost, as I said before, in OU specifically, Ninetales Alola plus Baxcalibur is just disgusting, because Ninetales Alola, you just run like Clay, you set up the Aurora Veil, and then you switch out. You can even, like, most teams deal with it with like Court Change Cinderace. It's obviously a little bit, you know, it's not as straightforward as just setting up Aurora Veil, especially for like high competitive play, but Cinderace just like Court Changing is not enough where like you can always just hold back with, like if Cinderace Court Changes your Aurora Veil, you can still go for Aurora Veil the next turn, and a lot of people have been running Terra Water just as a way for Ninetales to take less spikes, or excuse me, Stealth Rock damage, and then have it be like a switch in every turn. Like I deadass have a team on my Showdown right now that's literally just Ninetales, like 4 setup sweepers, and then like some like Rapid Spinner or whatever. But yeah, this thing is really, really powerful, obviously with Aurora Veil, and this is pretty much like an OU set. I know this thing is staying in OU because Hail is so strong, but Freeze Dry, Encore, and Moonblast are the main things, but it also gets similar stuff to Ninetales, obviously getting access to Fairy type moves and Psyshock, etc. But as I said before, this thing is mostly just setting up Hail and then leaving every time. But yeah, Alolan Ninetales, very, very strong. But yeah, let's continue with all the Kanto Pokemon. Next we have Poliwrath. Poliwrath obviously being that annoying Swift Swim, Belly Drum often sets, because the stats are a little bit like clunky, but it does have access to knockoff now. And I mean, with Belly Drum, Swift Swim, it can be really powerful, especially if you have close combat and liquidation as your two-way main ways of doing stabs. Of course, you could run some like weird bulk up set, because it does have decent defense, so you could run some bulk up, Water Absorb, maybe Shenanigans, Drain Punch, Encore, and Ice Punch are also some really good coverage. You can also run Circle Throw in case you want to do like forcing things out if you have hazards up, and then running this thing defensively. I mean, it has other coverage options in terms of like Earthquake, Rock Slide, and all that stuff. It can even run Taunt for like leads, but honestly I think Poliwrath wants to do as much damage as it can under Swift Swim, setting up Belly Drums. So that's basically Poliwrath. But of course, with Poliwrath comes Politoed. Yes, another Drizzlemon. I don't know, I honestly think that this is probably a cheaper Pelipper, because in terms of, for me, I always consider Pelipper having U-turn is just a lot better than Politoed, because Politoed, like, it sets up the Drizzle and then it doesn't really know what to do after that. It unfortunately did not get Flip Turn, I believe. Yeah, so it's definitely sad on that end. But yeah, Encore, Surf, Haze, Ice Beam are just like the main moves that you're probably going to run like every week. In terms of draft, you might find some more niche things depending on the matchups each week, but especially for like any tearing and Showdown, it's basically like instantly Encore, Surf, Haze, Ice Beam. It has no ways of like doing any hazards or setting up Toxic or anything like that. Perish Song is so weird to run, you'll probably never run it. But yeah, this thing is very limiting. It also gets access to Earth Power, which might be nice, but yeah, this ultimately this thing, Politoed is just here to set up the Drizzle, and it's probably lower, definitely lower than Pelipper. I'd probably see it being RU potentially, because it's only setting up the Rain, and then it's like, how viable is Rain? It's probably really good with Floatzel in lower tiers for sure, but yeah, that is Politoed. Next we got Victreebel. Of course, Victreebel wanting to be that Chlorophyll in the sun, really hard hitting Mon, Weather Ball, Leaf Blade, Knockoff, and Lunge. These are just some options that I was looking at. Weather Ball obviously turning into a fire type is really good for this Mon, because it allows you to hit steel types, which you wouldn't hit normally. But yeah, Leaf Blade is good coverage. Knockoff, Lunge. You can run this thing physical or special, it really doesn't matter. But it also has other moves, utility moves of like Sleep Powder, Strength Sap, Swords Dance to increase your attack. It also has access to Toxic. I mean, and it does have physical poison type moves, like with Poison Jab. Special poison type move would be Sludge Bomb. It does get access to Sucker Punch, but it's very niche. But yeah, this will definitely be in the lower tiers for sure. I mean, Under the Sun, like maybe paired with Ninetales, it can be powerful, but yeah, Victreebel has never been the shining star of Kanto, that's for sure. And you know, power creep has always been, you know, it's not, yeah, power creep is always happening anytime they make more and more Pokemon, but like it feels bad that these Kanto guys are definitely just, you're seeing more and more Kanto Pokemon and Gen 2 Pokemon just like drop in usage a lot, but it makes sense because of power creep. But Alright, next up we have Golem. I was looking at some Rockhead strategies, but also Sturdy is pretty good because it basically gives you a Focus Sash, which can be pretty powerful because Sandstorm doesn't break your chip because you're a Rock type, or Rock Ground, whatever. As well as, like, you know, there's no more hail, it's just snow. So Sturdy can actually be pretty useful. But I was leaning more towards the Rockhead strat of going for like a Rock Polish or something. Earthquake, Double Edge, Stealth Rock obviously being a really good lead for this. Also gets access to Body Press, which is pretty powerful because it has a high defense stat. So definitely for like fire types, you could easily switch this thing in and go for Body Press and stuff like that. Definitely this is a lower tier mon for sure, but it does get access to like Fire Punch, Heavy Slam, Iron Head as some coverage options, Stone Edge, Thunder Punch, Hammer On, and Roar are some other things I was looking at. Of course, you can always run like Explosion and Gyro Ball and all sorts of cool stuff in terms of draft, but especially for Showdown, this guy's unfortunately going to be a little bit on the lower end. Next, we have Golem Alola. Obviously, the Alola form coming with the Golem. Galvanize is pretty good. Of course, rocking Double Edge. Main moves that I was looking at, Double Edge, Thunder Wave, Volt Switch, and Wild Charge are just some good options that can run. It can also run Magnet Pull. It's pretty good for trapping potentially Corviknights in OU, and other Steel types, because you do get access to Earthquake, which can be pretty powerful, and you probably do have decent ways of dealing with Steel types, basically. But basically, Golem Alola gets all the same moves as Golem, except it gets access to like electric type moves and obviously Galvanize. So it can be a Stealth Rocker as well, and could run Rock Polish as well. But yeah, this is basically Golem Alola. Definitely lower tier for sure. And in terms of draft, like, it could definitely get some usage out of a couple matches, but it's definitely not the most powerful thing in the draft roster. Next we have Weezing. Weezing is back. I'm really excited for Weezing because I think it's actually a really decent mon. Levitate, Neutralizing Gas, obviously having some VGC stuff. I'm obviously looking at this and not in a VGC perspective, so yeah, I'm always looking at like basically Levitate. Some niche moves that gets Dusting Bomb, Flamethrower, Pain Split, Sludge Bomb, Taunt, Toxic, and Toxic Spikes are really powerful for Weezing especially. And then Will-O-Wisp as well. These are all really good options for dealing with threats, as well as like dealing with leads or things that want to set up on you. It's probably really good for draft format. It's at least probably somewhere in the middle or maybe lower. And in terms of Showdown, it'll probably be like RU, NU, just because it's very good defensively, only being weak to Psychic, I believe, because you have Levitate. It can be really powerful in the lower tiers to just like Will-O-Wisp things to basically be a really, really strong defensive wall. So yeah, that's Weezing. Of course, with Weezing comes its Galarian counterpart, which basically is the same thing as Weezing. Obviously, it will have more usage in VGC because I know Regigigas. So Regigigas I don't think is in the game, so I think it's just Slacking. So obviously, Neutralizing Gas plus Slacking is going to be a strategy that returns. Weezing also has Misty Surge, which might be good for like some Birdemons and Seeds, so it might be a little bit... this Weezing is probably a little bit better than the Weezing in terms of draft format. As well as probably it's a little bit better in terms of Showdown usage as well, because the typing is just a lot better. Fairy is just a very strong typing to have. And obviously you get access to Strange Steam and Defog, so yeah, especially for draft format, Defog is really strong for Weezing. But yeah, Levitate, Neutralizing Gas. Misty Surge, yeah, as I said before, is not really that powerful, but does weaken Dragon type moves that touch the ground. And basically it gets the same movesets as the other Weezing, so... that is the main thing with Galarian Weezing. I am happy to see this guy back because he's very powerful. So moving forward, we have Snorlax. Snorlax just does its normal Snorlax thing. I was just looking at some different coverage that can run Yawn, Earthquake, Belly Drum, Curse. Obviously you can run some like cool curse sets and then run Rest, Resto Chesto, or potentially just Sleep Talk. So like Curse, Sleep Talk, Rest, and then like Body Slam or something. Obviously you don't hit ghost types, but and decent immunities in terms of immunity, so you don't get poison, and then Thick Fat. Other coverage options include Body Slam, Fire Punch, Gunk Shot, and Heavy Slam, as well as Ice Punch, Iron Head, Seed Bomb, and Thunder Punch are just some good coverage options. It's really good, especially defensively. I don't think it's gonna, end up in OU, but it's probably decent against like Dragapult and stuff. You still probably don't take a Draco Meteor that well, as well as there are other threats that deal with that are very physically strong that can do a lot of damage to Snorlax, but I don't think it will ever end up in OU, probably like RU, UU-ish. But it's definitely good. Like, it's definitely good bulky wall. I feel like the main problem is you know, it doesn't have access to Toxic, doesn't have access to Thunder Wave. Yawn obviously forces a switch, but it's not permanent at all. So it's basically like a switch in to take a hit, and then you have to threaten other things out, which Snorlax, you know, can only run 4 moves to threaten things out with. So it's a little bit sad in that department. But yeah, moving on, we have Furret. Frisk as its best ability. It has Tidy Up now, which basically allows it to be a way of getting rid of hazards. So this is the same move as Mousehold. Yeah, Tidy Up is good, but this thing is definitely dropping his ass in like PU, probably the lowest tier possible. The only moves I could find uses for, Knock Off, Super Fang, and U-Turn. I mean, look at these stats. These stats are so sad. Justice for Furret. For real, like, this guy is just so sad. Like, if you tried to run some coil set, like, I don't think it's, I think, yeah, like, the defenses are just so bad. You can't run anything. It's definitely just like a spinner. You turn the hell out of there and maybe get off some super fangs or knockoffs. So that is for it for sure. Noctowl is back. Does have access to Defog, Roost, Hurricane, Nasty Plot. Some moves that I was looking at. Tinted Lens is not bad by any means, but of course the stats are pretty sad. Other coverage options are Hyper Voice, Moonblast, Psychic, and Shadow Ball all work well with Tinted Lens of this thing being offensive. But the thing is that it's very slow. So obviously it's not going to be higher tier in terms of Showdown. Definitely lower tier, probably NU. What does it go? RU? NU. I think it's probably PU. I mean, it's definitely a little bit better because it's Roost Defog, but yeah, the stats are just bad. So Rip Noctowl as well. Next, Ariados, literally one of my favorite bug type Pokemon, but it's literally the worst mon ever. Sticky Web. I think it had Sticky Web before, but yeah, Sticky Web is back. Knockoff, Toxic Spikes are obviously really powerful. Stats are horrendous, so let's not even pretend to look at those, especially since how slow it is. You could run some like weird Swords Dance set, especially if you Terra Dark. Your Sucker Punches are obviously a lot stronger. But you could run some weird Swords Dance, Sucker Punch, Mega Horn, and Smart Strike. Maybe even in Trick Room, it can be a little bit more powerful. I think I forgot to even look at like Poison type move. I'm pretty sure it's Poison Jab. I don't think it, yeah, it definitely doesn't get Gunk Shot. So, but yeah, very unfortunate that Ariados will never be great again. But yeah, sad. But you know, I mean, Sticky Web is always good. In terms of draft format, sometimes just drafting a one-off Sticky Web mom can be really powerful, so I do like Ariados for that. But besides that, very sad. These stats, ay ay ay. What's the base stat total for this guy? 400? Jesus Christ, that's like an NFE. Oof. You might as well just like make an evolution for him, like for real. If Ariados got an evolution, that'd be so sick. But sorry, let's keep moving forward. Ambipom. Sad thing about Ambipom is the hidden ability is Skill Link, and there's not a singular move that works with Skill Link. Maybe it works with Beat Up, but I think that's still dependent on how many allies you have in your party. So yeah, like Skill Link is literally useless. Back in the day, I was actually excited to see this thing back because I thought it would be like Tail Slap, Bullet Sleeve, which I had like way back in the day, but it doesn't have that. So like Technician is like the only viable ability unless you want to run like Fling Pickup. Wait, it finds one use. Oh no, Pickup is just for VGC stuff. I'm an idiot. Okay, Technician Fake Out, obviously really strong. And I was thinking of, you know, back in the day when people run Fake Out Last Resort, obviously with Terra Normal is very strong, but with Technician you do have access to moves to boost their coverage. Aerial Ace, Knockoff, good coverage. It's very fast at 115 speed and decent attack. It doesn't get any way of increasing its stats with like Swords Dance or anything like that, but it does have really good coverage options, so you could just run like Life Orb Technician. Other coverage options: Gunk Shot, Fire Punch, Ice Punch, and Low Kick. Next, other coverage options: Seed Bomb, Shadow Clog, Double Hit as your main way of doing stab. I think this is equivalent to like almost return damage. I think when, you know, 35 times 1.5 is like 47, so it'd be 17. It's like 52 times 2 is like 104. It's not bad for sure, especially with Terra Normal. Because also no, Terra Normal wouldn't boost it any further, but I mean Terra Normal Fake Out would do actually a lot, because there's like a hidden buff. But Fake Out's priority, so it doesn't count. It's only for some like very niche moves, but other coverage options: U-turn, Trail Blaze, Thunder Punch, and Thunder Wave. Thunder Wave is actually low-key nice because if something switches in on you that you can't hit, you can always just Thunder Wave shit, which is really nice. So moving forward, we have Yanmega. Obviously, it's either Tinted Lens or Speed Boost. It did not get Hurricane or any like Quiver Dance or anything like that. So Yanmega always struggled with just doing enough damage, even though it has really high special attack. So U-turn, Air Slash, Giga Drain, and Psychic. Nice thing about this is that it does have access to heavy duty boots now, so which is really powerful for Yanmega. You can do some damage and then you are fast enough to U-turn out on things. Oh, forgot to mention, Aimcom's definitely lower tier. Yanmega also might be lower tier, but it does get access to some good coverage: Air Slash, Giga Drain, Psychic, Ancient Power, Shadow Ball, Terra Blast, and Hypnosis. Obviously, it does learn Bug Buzz and stuff like that too. But yeah, it's just lacking a way of setting up, especially. I mean, it has Swords Dance now in terms of physical, but most of the time you're like never running physical Yanmega. So yeah, that's Yanmega. Still a little bit disappointing, but it is buffed in the fact that we do now have access to heavy duty boots. Wait, did we already have heavy duty boots in Sword and Shield? I think we did. So maybe it never got buffed at all. So next up, Gliscor. Everyone's super pumped about Gliscor coming back because obviously the option to Terra. Gliscor with Poison Heal. They buffed the shit out of Gliscor, to be honest. Toxic Spikes, Knockoff. It even gets Stealth Rock. Dual Wing Beat as a way for hitting with flying types. Earthquake. Swords Dance also. Like, you can still run Swords Dance, like be bulky Swords Dance and still do a lot of damage. U-turn, Taunt, Protect obviously for your like poison, toxic shenanigans, and obviously Stone Edge for coverage. This kind of reminds me of like when back in the day when me and Soren Flyin, we used to play Showdown, but we used to run Gliscor. I think it was like Gen 6, Gen 7. And we used to run just like Poison Heal, Toxic, Protect, Substitute, like Earthquake as our final move, and with Toxic, we would just like Toxic stall the shit out of everyone. It was so much fun. But yeah, this thing can be really powerful. I mean, that same setup would work for draft, but obviously you can still get taunted. But yeah, people are really pumped, especially for Gliscor, because it can Terra Water or change its typing to be even like bulkier basically, which is really scary for Gliscor because it already is so bulky. I think the one downfall is that it does not get Roost anymore, so that's like the one thing that limits it. But yeah, besides that, Gliscor is back. But yeah, really good Pokemon. Obviously, you know, offensively it's not great, but as a defensive wall and pivot, it's just fantastic. So moving forward, we have Magcargo. Magcargo's back. Did anyone miss him? I don't think so. Shell Smash options, obviously it's not looking too great because that speed is terrible. But yeah, Shell Smash is a good move. Memento. What's funny is for like a lot of these bad Pokemon, I'm like, oh yeah, the best thing they can do is just die with Memento to help set up something else. But this one does get access to Stealth Rock, Will-O-Wisp. I mean, it's definitely decent in terms of defense and can have some good matchups in terms of draft format. But in terms of Showdown usage, it's definitely going to be in the lower tiers. It does have Yawn. Potentially, if you weaken your opponent's got rid of all your opponent's special attackers, you could also run some like Acid Armor stuff. It also has Recover, so again, like this Acid Armor Recover strategy could work. You can also run some like Flame Body stuff as well as Lava Plume and have really high chances to burn stuff that are physical. You also get coverage in Earth Power. As I said before, Recover, Light Screen, Reflect, and Power Gem. Screen's obviously a really good option, as well as Power Gem having a way of hitting with your stab. But yeah, this is basically Magcargo. His stats are sad, but he can have some pretty good defensive options, but he will definitely be lower tier for sure. Alright, Big Mamo. I mean, also with Terraing this guy would also make him more viable in terms of Showdown usage too, so. Alright, Big Mamoswine. I was always pumped to see Mamoswine come back. I was looking at Mamoswine. If it really wanted a stronger ice type move, could run Loaded Ice Icicle Spear obviously now. Best ability is by far Thick Fat, but Oblivious can be used in some good draft style format because it can be immune to Intimidate, as well as Taunt for whenever it goes for Stealth Rocks. Earthquake, Knockoff, Icicle Spear, Rock Blast. Again, Rock Blast works well with the Loaded Dice, and it's kind of like similar to Torterra. We'll talk about that probably next episode. But you know, Loaded Dice, Icicle Spear, Rock Blast is really powerful. Then Earthquake, it's kind of like a mini Torterra, but it can't Shell Smash up, but it can still do a lot of damage. So Yeah, Mamoswine has always been like a bulky, kind of really hard hitting mon, and it has decent speed to hit stuff. So other options include Freeze Dry, Iron Head, Stealth Rock as I said before, and Stone Edge. So that is basically Mamoswine. I also forgot a little bit of Mamoswine also still does have access to Trailblaze now, which is really good for increasing its speed to make it more scarier as a physical attacker. I know back in the day, like some water ground types were hard for Mamoswine to get through, so it ran Freeze Dry, but now it can run Trailblaze for those mons that also help increase its speed, so it's more stronger as a sweeper, but also gets access to Heavy Slam, Ice Shard, and Icicle Crash. So yeah. And we hit the 30-minute mark, and wow, I've been slouching this entire time, but we hit the 30-minute mark, so I'm going to continue on with other Pokemon in the next episode, so make sure that you stay tuned to the channel. But yeah, without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed. It's kind of always fun to talk about Pokemon, but yeah, for me, I'm going to get the heck out of here, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.